President Trump bombs Iran. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, we've been talking about it for over a week last week. We saw it coming. We debated it on this show over and over and over again. Well, on Saturday night, essentially the debate is over, at least for now. President Trump made the fateful decision. In fact, according now to what the administration is saying and what media reports are reporting, President Trump, even on Saturday, still was not 100% certain whether he should give the go-ahead. But then, early Saturday afternoon, after the Iranian mullahs incredibly rejected any peace talks with Trump as he offered them one last olive branch and said, we will not negotiate nuclear enrichment, our nuclear program under any conditions as long as Israel continues to bomb us, Trump said, okay, I'm done. And he ordered what is called Operation Midnight Hammer. And whatever you think of the wisdom of his decision, the operation itself is, to me, without question, one of the most brilliant, spectacular, effective military operations in the history of warfare. Everybody has been marveling at the Israelis and what they have pulled off over the last 8-9 days. Man, did our military take it to another level. So, just very quickly, Trump engaged in an unbelievably brilliant move of deception. Militarily, this was a masterclass. As he spoke about, I'm willing to give Iran within 2 weeks. Notice the way it was phrased. Not 2 weeks, but within 2 weeks. A chance at the diplomatic table. And as he then sent B-2 strategic stealth bombers going west from Whitman, Missouri, which is where they're based, and the whole media was following that fleet of B-2 bombers as they went out over the Pacific Ocean, Hawaii, Guam. Everybody said, well, it's going to be a long while before they get there. But secretly, in an incredible deception campaign, he used the B-2 bombers going west as a decoy, while the real package, as it's called, the real attack fleet, went east. It went east from Whitman, Missouri, and it went in the dead of night. 125 aircraft participated in the strike. The B-2 stealth bombers were periodically, repeatedly refueled in the air. They never landed once. They flew continuously 37 hours to their targets and then back. When you read about the operation, you just marvel at the sophistication, at the discipline, at the incredible power of the American military and its incredible global reach. They penetrated Iranian airspace undetected. And then, as the stealth bombers were protected by third, fourth, fifth generation aircraft, with the USS Carl Vinson and the USS Admiral Nimitz nearby, they then used nuclear submarines to launch over a dozen Tomahawk cruise missiles, striking the key nuclear enrichment site Isfahan. And as Isfahan was getting blown to pieces, the B-2 stealth bombers they had a crew of 2 on each of them, dropped what are called MOPs, massive ordnance penetrators, these 30,000-pound huge bunker busters, one after another, after another, after another. 14 were dropped in all, 12 on Fordo, 2 on Natanz. Fordo is gone. Natanz has been blown to pieces. Isfahan has been absolutely shattered. And so, with one order, President Trump, in one sweeping blow, has destroyed the core, the very heart and soul of Iran's nuclear enrichment program and Iran's nuclear weapons program. And then, and by the way, they took out all surface-to-air missiles. There wasn't even a shot fired on the bombers. It was absolutely devastating. It was devastating. The planes then flew back across Iranian airspace, never landing, refueled until they got all the way back to Whitman Base in Missouri. He caught the Ayatollahs and the Iranian regime with their pants down. And so now the question, after making this decision to bomb Iran, what comes next? That's now the question. President Trump delivered a very forceful, bold speech. He addressed the country 10 o'clock in the evening Eastern Time on Saturday, in which he told the United States and the world that as far as he's concerned, this is now over. Iran now has a chance to go back to the peace table and then peacefully give up its nuclear weapons and ballistic missile programs forever. Forever. And the bombing will end, and Iran can have a life of normalcy and prosperity and join the entire free world. But he left it open-ended. If they do not come back to the table, Trump says, we're going to hit you again and again and again. And as he put it, this was the most difficult operation. We're going to hit your military bases. We're going to hit your oil and energy infrastructure. We're going to hit your most important military targets. In other words, we are going to hammer you and bomb you and attack you into submission. If you're smart, go to the table and make peace. But what is now clear is that Trump now is clearly looking at the possibility of an open-ended war with Iran. The next day, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, the Vice President, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, went and did talk show after talk show. Hegseth himself did a major media briefing in which they say, according to them, this is a one and done. That they are happy that they took out this nuclear weapons program and that Trump now doesn't want to do any more bombing. So, what's going to happen next? Trump last night on Truth Social said it's time to make Iran great again. MIGA, M-I-G-A, in which he called for regime change in Tehran, the overthrow of the mullahs. Now, he was vague. Does this mean the Iranian people rising up and overthrowing the Ayatollahs? Does this mean backing Israel if they go in for a regime change war? Or are we now slowly being pulled into a regime change war a la Iraq, but this time piece by piece by piece? We don't know yet. We don't know. Mike asked me just before we got on the air, Jeff, do you think the bombing of Iran by our magnificent U.S. military, was it the right move or the wrong move? I'm going to tell you exactly what I told Mike. As a military operation, it was an unmitigated, spectacular success. It is very high risk. Trump is a high-risk man. And that's what makes him so formidable, so unpredictable, and very often invincible. He's like a poker player. He's willing to go at the table and go all in, over and over and over again. And now with Iran, he's gone all in. Make no mistake, we are at war with Iran. The question now is, what will the Ayatollahs do? How will the Iranians respond? That is now the question. If the Iranians are in any way semi-rational, and that's the key now, are they semi-rational? And everything depends on the supreme leader. He runs that country. He calls the shots. What is he going to do? Is he now going to finally see sense and sit down or send his team and negotiate a peace deal to save his country and save his regime from impending doom? As Trump put it, you have two choices, peace or tragedy. Or are the Ayatollahs going to retaliate against Israel and the United States and widen this war and deepen this war? That is now the question. My question to you, do you support the bombing? 619 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. Okay, well, I'll tell you this. Trump has now become the Ayatollah's worst nightmare. So, look, as I said to Mike, and I want to re-stress this to everybody, this was, from a military point of view, I mean, incredible. I'm in awe. I'm serious. Truly in awe. And this is one of the greatest military operations, I believe, in the history of warfare, certainly in the history of modern warfare. And if this breaks the back of the mullahs, and this is now everybody's hope, not just wiping out their nuclear enrichment and nuclear weapons program, but forces them to the peace table, in which they agree in a deal that they will permanently abandon their ballistic missile program and their nuclear weapons program, then I think there's no question Trump will go down in history. We're talking Winston Churchill, that level, as a world historical figure, as one of, if not the greatest U.S. president ever, who brought about peace in the Middle East, peace to America, peace to the world. There's no question. Okay, there's no question. But it is high risk. And he knows it's high risk. And his people around him know. Because, and this is the other side of the equation, and we have to be very honest with ourselves, now everything depends on the Ayatollah's response. Will they see reason and go to the peace table and recognize now that their nuclear program is shattered, that their ballistic missiles, even now, by the way, Israel continues to bomb. Israel has not stopped bombing. So they're destroying more missile launchers, more of these ballistic missile storage facilities. So the Iranian regime is being systematically degraded almost now by the hour. It's starting now to collapse around them. So, are they going to see reason and make peace? If they do, this is honestly one of the greatest operations ever. But if they retaliate, then we could definitely see an escalating war and a widening war. Now, in particular, a couple of things you need to know, all of you. Please, whatever you're doing, just put it down or pay attention, because this is very important. The Iranian parliament has now voted to close the Strait of Hormuz. That is the key critical choke point, where just over 20% of the world's oil supply and shipping goes through. If they shut down the Strait of Hormuz, now it's still the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, must sign off on this. So the parliament now has voted for it. It's literally on his desk. If he signs it, they are going to shut it down. They're going to mine it. They're going to shut it down. This will cut off 20% of the world's oil supply. This will send oil prices soaring around the world. Even here in the United States, China would be hurt by this badly. India, which gets about 80% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz, their economy would be utterly decimated. But even here, you are going to see the price at the pump go way up. I mean, way up. 5, 6, 7, whatever. I mean, it's going to cause the price of oil to go high, very high. So there's going to be a major economic impact. Rubio has now told the Ayatollahs publicly, if you shut down the Strait of Hormuz, we will consider this an economic attack on the United States and the world, and it's going to be a massive retaliation on our part. We are going to hit you so hard, it's going to make Fordo look, like a Sunday picnic. In other words, escalation of the war. Furthermore, the foreign minister of Iran is now flying to Moscow. Former President Dmitry Medvedev, who's really the number 2 in the regime, has now come out and said that the Russians and other great powers, i.e. the Chinese, are now seriously thinking about giving the mullahs an atomic bomb. As Medvedev said, what the Americans have now done by smashing their nuclear program is now going to pave the way for other great powers, i.e. Russia, China, maybe Pakistan, to deliver a nuclear weapon to Iran so they can protect themselves from further strikes from either Israel or the United States. Now, Trump is furiously working the phones as we speak to tell Putin stand down, to tell Xi stand down, and to tell the leader of Pakistan stand down. We are not going to allow you or any of you to provide nuclear missiles or a nuclear bomb already completed to the Iranians. Iran has now vowed a massive retaliation. They have now put their country on a full war footing. They have declared war on the United States, saying that we have declared war on them, so they're now responding with a declaration of war against us. They have proxies now across the Middle East. Hezbollah, weakened, but still alive. Hamas, badly weakened, but still alive. They also have Shia proxies in Iraq and Syria, and they have the Houthis in Yemen. Our forces now are on very high alert, fearing now a terrorist attack on our bases and on U.S. military personnel. And the big one, and this to me is what is most unforgivable about Joe Biden. This is why I curse that man even to this day. While Trump was at the G7 summit, last week, he got a message through an intermediary. This is from the Iranians themselves, that they had penetrated Biden's open border. They said, we want Trump to know this. And that we have sleeper cells in the United States. Hezbollah, Iranian terrorist sleeper cells. And that we are now ready to activate them, and they will commit acts of terror. Americans will be slaughtered on American soil. Tom Homan says at least 1,300 Iranian nationals under Biden's open border were allowed to come into our country. Everything now depends on Iran's response. 6:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, lines are absolutely jammed. Text line is on fire. I'm getting a ton of emails already. I want to ask all of you clearly now, this is one of the most critical, momentous decisions in Trump's presidency. Frankly, maybe in the history of the world. We shall see. And so my question to you, and it is now the ultimate question, did Trump do the right thing in getting us involved in a war, or at least an attack on Iran? Did Trump do the right thing to bomb Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities? Or, in other words, did he remove the grave Iranian nuclear threat, at least for the next couple of years, and finally do what no other president has been able to do? Or has he now slowly roped us in to another war in the Middle East? The very thing he vowed he would never do. That is now the question. Agree, disagree, did Trump do the right thing? 617-266-6868. Mark in Medford. You're going to kick us off, Mark. The honor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, and happy good morning Monday to you, but not so good in Iran. But I'm leaning towards, yes, Jeff, I think Trump did the right thing. I mean, Iran had ample upon ample opportunities to make peace in the Middle East, to make peace with Israel, to make peace with the United States. Well, it is now clear, Jeff, that they want no part of any peace whatsoever. So I believe Trump did do the right thing. For 40-plus years, Jeff, we've been listening to debt to America, debt to Israel, debt to the Americans, and debt to the Jews. Well, when you do that, Jeff, you can't have a nuclear bomb. I'm sorry.
Mark, do you fear that if Iran retaliates, and we've already said that if they do, we're going to hit them back even harder and harder and harder, do you fear that we could be getting sucked into another war? Do you have any fear of that whatsoever? Or do you think, like many, this is all bluff on the Iranians? They're up against two militarily much superior powers, the United States and Israel. Their military has been completely and utterly neutered. It's been smashed for all intents and purposes, and that Iran right now is just like a barking dog. That's all they can do is bark and bark and bark. It's all talk, no action. What say you?
Well, you never can trust what the Iranians say, Jeff. You really can't. But if they do decide to retaliate, then it's obvious they have a death wish for the mullahs, for the regime, and basically for the citizens of Iran, which is not right because most of them don't like the regime, Jeff. But I think if it does happen, Jeff, I think it would be quick and painless. That's my opinion.
Interesting. Mark, thank you very much for that call. Okay, Mark says, on the whole, he thinks Trump did the right thing. Look, this is a death to America regime, and they've been doing it for 45 years. And look, I thought Trump delivered a really strong speech Saturday night when he addressed the country. This is a regime that has killed literally thousands of Americans. We forget this now. And Trump mentioned all of those IEDs that they deployed, that the Iranian scientists gave to their Shia proxy in Iraq, and how many American troops they maimed and murdered and killed. In 1983, the attack on the barracks in Beirut, in which they killed over 240 American Marines, never mind the hostages that they took. So the point being, they have killed Americans for thousands of Americans. This is a regime with American blood on its hands. So can you really allow them to have a nuclear bomb? Especially when they vowed to use it to wipe Israel off the face of the earth? By the way, no other country does that. Saying, yeah, we get the bomb, we're going to use it. We're going to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. So Trump decided they were too close to the possibility of a bomb. Israel had softened up a lot of targets. And Trump basically said, okay, they clearly don't want peace. They'd rather have war than give up the bomb. That was ultimately Trump's conclusion. They prefer the bomb to peace. And Trump said, I've told them 1,000,000 times, you're not getting the bomb. And kaboom! He let him have it Saturday night. 617-266-6868. Dave in Hyde Park. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Dave?
It's a beautiful day, Jeff. The sun's out. The sky is blue. Jeff?
It's also a heat wave, Dave, but I don't know how you can stand it out there, but let that go, Dave.
Well, Jeff, it's hard to have nice AC in a small putt-putt car that gives you nice icy weather.
Dave, what do you think of Trump's decision? You like it? Not like it?
Jeff, I think he did the right thing. Okay? Now, just excuse me. Just after I heard it on what happened, Jeff, I heard another report just after that saying that the Iranians had taken everything out of the mountain and the caves and everything. They're saying that there was nothing in the mountains, that when they bombed it and everything was already taken was removed. That also came on yesterday. So now that's another story in itself, because that came on just after the initial report that we already bombed them. But, Jeff, I do agree that there's going to be a lot of sleeper cells waking up, and there's going to be retaliation, Jeff. And I also believe, Jeff, there's going to be a heavy retaliation on Israel. And if they destroy Israel, Jeff, according to Revelation, it's going to come right down to the very end, or where the skies are going to literally open up and God's going to take over if this happens. Because you know they want to destroy all the Israelis and all the Jewish people, Jeff, because basically they know God came from Israel and Jesus walked the earth. And that's what they're afraid of, Jeff. And the Oman that they're talking about who's going to come down from the sky, that's not going to be Jesus, Jeff. That's going to be the devil if anything ever happens like that. And that will be the...
Well, that's the thing. You see, you nailed it. You're dealing with religious fanatics. You know, the mullahs in Tehran, they're religious fanatics. And you're right. They want to do everything in their powers to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And so the thing is, though, Israel is got such air supremacy now. They are hitting Iran at will. They're hitting the Iranian regime at will. So I don't see how... Now, my only fear is this, and it's just a fear. It's clear they did keep a lot of their nuclear enrichment. The capacity is gone. Okay, their program is gone. But they had trucks there for days, and they did pull out a lot of their enrichment material, their enrichment fissile material. So they've kept a lot of that. Now, do they have the sophistication to make a small nuclear device? I don't know. The Israelis are monitoring. Our security, our intelligence is monitoring. Everybody, that's what I mean. Can they put together a suitcase bomb? We don't know. We're going to have to find out. That's why I told Mike, look, there's no question from a military standpoint, it was a brilliant operation. The only question now is, to me, it's almost like time will judge. Another couple weeks, and we will know definitively whether Trump broke them or has this led to an escalation and a widening of the war. I think there's no question. But the fear now is they did get some fissile material. They were able to get it out. And what are they going to do with that? Do they have the capability for a mini bomb or a suitcase bomb? 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very, very quick. This was President Trump, Saturday night. Clearly one of the most momentous, important, critical decisions, not just of his entire presidency, but in many ways of the history of the world as we speak. Listen now to Trump saying Iran's nuclear program is no more. Roll cut one, Mike.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's number one state sponsor of terror.
And on that, there's no question. He did it. He did it. Other presidents talked about it. He did it. Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity has been obliterated. The nuclear threat, at least for the next couple of years, in terms of their weapons program. Okay, again, we don't know what they've managed to save or maybe put together for a little dirty or suitcase bomb. I hope not. I'm praying not. But you always have to be careful. I mean, this is a very dangerous regime. But they have obliterated Iran's nuclear weapons program. And this is the world's number one. It's a terrorist state. It's the world's number one state sponsor of terror. So the most dangerous regime on earth has now been denied the most dangerous weapon on earth. I think that is now no question. Listen now to Trump, though. He then says, I may be coming back. This thing may not be over. There may be more strikes and more bombings. The ball is now in the mullah's court. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
So did you catch that? If they don't make peace, in other words, if they don't come to the table and sign a deal that permanently ends their nuclear program and their ballistic missile program, he's saying more attacks are coming and even bigger attacks. So he's leaving the door open for possibility an open-ended campaign against the Iranians. Now, listen this is Trump. The argument that he makes is not just a nuclear argument or we have to end the regime's ability to get a bomb permanently. But he's also saying part of this was retribution. Part of this was justice for everything the mullahs had done to us for the last 46 years. Roll cut 2, Mike.
For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel.
So Trump makes it very clear. They killed many Americans. They killed many others around the region and around the world. This is a death to America regime. And now he just dealt them a devastating body blow. Now, let me play one more cut, then I want to go back to the phone lines. I want to play this second cut because Trump, at this point in the speech, goes even further, where he's now saying, no, in other words, this is not a one and done, or it could be a one and done if the Iranians bow to our demands and come to the peace table. But if they don't, he goes, mark my words, more attacks are coming. More bombing is coming. We are not going to stop. It's either, The Iranians have a choice, peace or tragedy. And what he means by tragedy is more bombings like the ones we did on Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Roll cut 3, Mike.
With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes.
So this is the fear that many people within his team and many leading MAGA thinkers and influencers have, which is, has Trump inadvertently now stumbled into or been pulled into another major war in the Middle East? And remember, he campaigned on getting us out of endless wars. So we shall see. Again, everything depends on Iran's response. Now, let me make one final point, and then I want to go right back to the blazing phone lines. To me, I think what is now clear is that, and it's been this for a while, we're in the midst of a larger war, World War III. And you've seen it now with blocs developing. And you have the China, Russia, Iran, North Korea bloc. And I would even throw in South Africa now. And these countries have formed a military alliance. And what this strike is on Iran is in many ways simply a battle in part of a larger war between ourselves and and China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. I think there's no question. There's no question. We've been fighting a proxy war against Russia in Ukraine. We have been fighting proxy wars against Iran going back 40 years. China now has become Iran's biggest backer, and we are now fighting proxy wars against China as well. So the question now is, what will China ultimately, I don't even think it's the mullahs that are going to decide. I think ultimately now the decision is going to be made in the Kremlin, but especially in Beijing. Are they willing to give Iran a nuclear weapon? Are they willing to send in weapons to the mullahs? Are they willing to help the mullahs escalate and expand this war? Those are all unknowns at this point. Now, Trump doesn't want this to happen. Trump is calling Putin. He's calling Xi. He's telling him, back off. You don't want this to go where this thing can go. We just don't want the mullahs to get a bomb. That's it. So rein in your junkyard dog, the mullahs, and everything will be fine. The question is, will the Russians and Chinese play ball? And I know I've said it before, but I've got to say it again. Damn Joe Biden. That's all I can say. Damn Joe Biden. Because the greatest threat that we face and the homeland are these terrorist cells that now the mullahs could activate. And I want to be crystal clear on this again. I said it in my opening monologue. I want to say it again. Iran sent messages to Trump at the G7 summit. Under Biden's open border, they said it. We penetrated your country with terrorists and terrorist cells. We're in. We're in. And we're telling you that if you attack us at our time of choosing and place of choosing, we are going to activate these terrorist cells. And you are going to see dead Americans on American soil. Now, leave aside what the Iranians are planning to do for a second. How dare Joe Biden leave that border open? Look what he's done to us. He's literally putting our lives at stake because that son of a, you know what I want to call him, that SOB decided to fanatically keep that border open. And now you have the same idiot Democrats and the same leftists. Oh, this could be leading to terrorist attacks on American soil. Trump's getting us involved in a war with Iran. That's going to lead Americans being killed here at home. Yeah, who let them in? Your guy let him in. Your guy let him in. Now, just so that you know, Trump is obviously aware of this. FBI Director Kash Patel, Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, the CIA John Ratcliffe, and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, have all come out and said that they are increasing surveillance of Iranian terrorist cells and terrorist groups, not just in the Middle East, which is where Ratcliffe is focused on, but here at home. The FBI is monitoring many groups and certain members that they believe could launch terrorist attacks domestically in the United States. But my God, how could he do this to us? 617-266-6868 is the number. And it was Obama. I'm telling you, it was Obama. He was the one that ran Biden's third term. He was the one, remember, going all the way back to Obama's presidency. He was the one that gave the Iranians billions of dollars in cash. Who nuked them up? He did. Who gave them the ability and the financial capacity to build these bombs or get this nuclear weapons program? He did. Who gave them the ability to fund and arm their proxies all around the Middle East? He did. Who was the one that pushed Biden to open up the border, knowing that these Hezbollah and other Islamic Jihad and other terrorist cells aligned to Iran would pour into our country? He did. He did. And so, as I said last night on X, what went up in smoke Saturday night was not just the dream of the Ayatollahs to obtain a nuclear bomb. What also went up in smoke was President Obama's, their leader's dream of giving Iran the path to the nuclear bomb, of giving radical Islam the bomb. Because as he said in his own autobiography, dreams of my father, his father wanted to bring America down. And Obama said it was good for the United States to be knocked down, as he put it, a peg or two. He wanted our mortal enemies to be able to defeat and challenge the United States, especially Islam and especially the mullahs in Tehran. You know what else Trump has done? He literally has overturned Obama's presidency. Obama's dream is now finished. Just like the Ayatollah's dream of a nuclear bomb is finished. Trump just defeated Obama. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Betty in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Betty, and welcome.
How's it going?
Good. How are you, Betty?
Good, good. So much to talk about. Well, Jeff, I just want to bring a little positivity to the situation. I think we should all look on the bright side, and there is a silver lining here, that thank God that Trump is our president and that Biden is not. I mean, this was inevitable. And, you know, I support Trump and the bombings 1,000%. I mean, if he didn't take this action, this opportunity, we'd always be looking over our shoulders and over our back. I mean, we know that no president prior and probably no president in the future is going to have the balls or the backbone to take this action. So it was something that needed to be done. And as General Jack Keane said last night, he got so emotional and teary-eyed. He said, this is for the last 40 years. And, that gave the retribution for all the men and women who came back maimed and who lost their lives. And I have to say, for the squad and AOC, they're all whining and stuff. You know what, Jeff? This reminds me of, like, the parents, in line trying to order food. And it's like they're trying to teach their kid a lesson. They want them to make choices. And it's like, okay, Joey, do you want the pickles? You don't want the pickles, and there's 20 people in line. There was no reason for Trump to ask these people for their opinion. I mean, he's the parent, they're the kids. This would have been leaked in like 3 seconds. I mean, there's a time and a place, but I think this is just unbelievable. It's the right decision. Everybody knows that Trump is not a president of war, but you know what? He can stand up and make the decisions. We can't be mushy here. He's making the decisive decisions, and this was just poetry in motion, and you could see the military. It's like you can't be listening to the peanut gallery. This is 1,000% correct, and I'm excited to see where this is going to go. I think we should be looking on the bright side here.
Well, Betty, I got to say, to me, there are many, many silver linings. There's no question. One of them is the brilliance of our military, and I think the signal that it sent to the world. And I think it's no accident. I've been watching these briefings by the military. For example, like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, who Trump really praised, saying if you want to know the truth, he was the architect of this bombing campaign, this plan. And he said it was masterful, absolutely masterful. That General Kane is just really a brilliant military strategist. And so General Kane came out and gave his briefing. And he was really blow by blow by blow by blow. And part of it is I'm looking at this, I'm like, should you really be telling everybody this much detail? But then it's obvious. The reason why he's saying so much detail, he's not just talking to us. He's talking to Putin. He's talking to Xi. He's talking to leaders all over the world. Look how good and disciplined and professional and almost really super level our military is. Look what we can do. And the Iranians had no clue. No clue. And we can project power all over the world. We can hit anybody by air, by land, by sea, you name it. In other words, don't mess with the USA. So I think there's a lot of silver linings. There's no question. And look, Trump bent over backwards. I don't know how many ways and how many times he gave them an exit ramp. And the mullahs wouldn't take it. So, you keep chanting death to America, death. They're like a bully. And now they really got punched in the face. I mean, really got punched in the face. And they don't like it. Well, too bad. Stop bullying everybody. The whole region hates them. Notice, again, the only people that are taking to the streets to defend Iran and the mullahs, I swear to you, are the Democrats and the left. If you notice, Saudi Arabia is quiet. Syria is quiet. Lebanon is quiet. Turkey is quiet. All these countries in the Middle East are quiet. The Muslims are going on the streets saying, death to America, how dare you attack Iran? No. In New York, as an example, last night, thousands of protesters, anti-Trump, pro-Iran protesters, they're waving the Iranian flag, took to the streets to protest what Trump did. AOC is now calling for Trump's impeachment. You have other Democrats now saying we're going to impeach. Outside of Fetterman, I think every single Democrat has condemned the attack by Trump. And now they're complaining, he didn't give us any heads up. Well, why? You think if he gave Schumer a heads up, or if he gave Hakeem Jeffries a heads up, that they wouldn't have run to the New York Times or the Washington Post and this thing would have been leaked as our planes were still in the sky approaching Iran? One of the reasons why it was so stunningly successful was because he didn't tell those idiot Democrats. Finally, a military operation where people kept their mouth shut. And I think that's why it was such a spectacular success. So honestly, if I was advising Trump and he says, well, usually in America, you give the Senate Majority Leader a heads up, the Senate Minority Leader, the House Speaker, the House Minority Leader. In other words, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, the most powerful in Congress, you give them, at least a heads up to what's happening. I'd be, are you crazy? This thing would be on the front page of the New York Times and the Washington Post. Our planes wouldn't even be hitting Europe, never mind Iran yet. Tell them nothing, because their job is to sabotage you and sabotage this country. And by the way, when Biden or Obama bombed, they never gave a heads up. They never gave a heads up. So it's okay for them not to give a heads up, but we got to give a heads up to these traitors? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. 617. Thank you for that call, Betty. 617-266-6868 is the number. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Yeah, Jeff, you just covered everything that I was going to talk about with all these wacko Democrats. Did you see Bernie Sanders the night he got that note about the bombing? He went...
Oh, Bob, please hang on. I want to come right back to you, okay? Because the reaction among Democrats, loco. I mean, it's insane. I'm telling you, it's not just insane, it's treason. It's naked treason. It's an unbelievable response. That, more of your calls next. 719 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just to be fair, I want to always be fair to the audience, to Kuhner Country. A lot of people, big Trump supporters, voted for him 3 times, have been emailing me, texting me. No one has called in yet, but getting a lot of emails and texts saying, Jeff, I don't like the decision. That they oppose Trump's decision to have bombed Iran and taken out especially those 3 key nuclear enrichment sites. So just to be fair, I want to read to you one email I got, very thoughtful email, and you let me know if you agree or disagree. It is from Tom. I will not mention Tom's last name. He wanted to remain, anonymous. So this is what he wrote. Jeff, first, we cannot be the world's police. He says I don't agree with Trump's decision to bomb Iran's nuclear sites, and here's why. We cannot be the world's police. We should have given Israel everything they needed to do it and not gotten directly involved. I hope I am wrong, but I see holy hell erupting, even in the streets of America. Second, I had an epiphany late Saturday afternoon because something happened. I went grocery shopping. I shop once a week. Trump ran on keeping us out of world conflicts and bringing prices down. I am a single person. I live all by myself. I spent $140 yesterday at the grocery store. I was pissed. Pardon my French. Trump promised he would work to bring prices down starting on day 1. Prices are not down. Maybe gas is a little. That is about it. And I can only imagine what is going to happen to gas prices when Iran shuts down the Strait of Hormuz. We will wish for $5 a gallon gas. Now, instead of being the heroes by keeping the strait open, we will be the villains because we got involved, and everything from this point forward will be seen as aggression. even using force to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. I strongly support Iran not ever getting a nuclear weapon. I strongly do not support us getting directly involved in a conflict on the other side of the world. We are in trouble, Jeff. God bless us all, and thank you. So, what do you make of Tom's argument? He doesn't want Iran to get the bomb. He wants Israel to finish the job. But he says it's going to lead now to many unintended consequences. Essentially, it's opened up a Pandora's box. And he's saying, my prices are not down. My groceries are still way too high. I'm sure if I spoke to him, he'd say, we got to still do deportations of how many millions of illegals. He campaigned on not getting us involved in these wars. And so he fears that now we're going down a very, very dangerous path. He also fears that there could be terrorist attacks here on the homeland. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. And now the Democrats are pouncing all over this. They're using it as an example to wage now political war against Trump. And the second the bombs were dropped, they went all out against Trump. And that's why I want to go back to Bob in Plymouth. AOC has now called for Trump's impeachment. You have other Democrats now calling for Trump's impeachment. They say that his strike was illegal, unconstitutional, because he did not get prior congressional authorization for launching the bombs and the missile attacks on Iran's key nuclear facilities. Let's go right back to Bob in Plymouth. Bob, you were talking about Bernie Sanders, and the second the news broke that we had bombed Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan, Bernie was already raging. Please, Bob, pick up where you left off.
Well, like I said earlier, I thought his head was going to explode. He doesn't know any details at all. All he knows is his anti-Trump rhetoric. That's all he knows. Same with AOC and the rest of these losers. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say about this,
Bob, I take it you support the president's decision?
Absolutely. Positively.
Bob, where were these people? I'm just curious. As I said on X last night, when Obama bombed Libya into the Stone Age, and you remember then Al-Qaeda took over the country, and they stuck a stick up his rear end. Literally, they stuck a stick up Gaddafi's rear end, and they tore him to pieces. Obama never got congressional authorization. So when Obama conducted bombing missions and bomb strikes, he never went to Congress. They didn't call for him to be impeached. They never said it was illegal or unconstitutional. Now when Trump does it, all of a sudden, the sky is falling and we have to have impeachment hearings and he has to be impeached. I mean, they're just such a bunch of despicable liars and frauds. Bob, do you think this push for impeachment, is it going to gain traction? Does it have political legs, Bob?
Not, because it's been tried twice already and it got nowhere. And there's one other thing that I'd like to add, if I could. I read online that Donald Trump wants to put a golf course in Iran, and he already has the first 3 holes. Is that true?
No, they're just trolling the Iranians. That's all. Bob, thank you very, very much for that call. He gets the first 3 holes. What are they called? First hole is Fordo, second hole is Natanz, third hole is Isfahan. All right. Did Trump make the right decision?
The order we received from our commander-in-chief was focused, it was powerful, and it was clear. We devastated the Iranian nuclear program. But it's worth noting the operation did not target Iranian troops or the Iranian people. For the entirety of his time in office, President Trump has consistently stated for over 10 years that Iran must not get a nuclear weapon. Full stop.
Pete Hegseth, he gave a detailed briefing to the press right after the bombing campaign the following morning, Sunday morning. And so my question to you, did President Trump make the right decision? 7:33 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Did President Trump open a Pandora's box by bombing Iran? In other words, yes, the mission itself, brilliant, spectacular. But has he now opened up unintended consequences that could either hurt the United States in the long term or even the near term, or potentially drag us into a widening and deepening war? In other words, did he make a mistake? Did President Trump open a Pandora's box by bombing Iran? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN as in National ER. You can also vote via X. And again, last night I was super active on X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in National ER. I hope it's B. You know, Jeff, how would you vote? I would say hopefully B. Because we don't need to open up another Pandora's box. We really don't. Because if we do get pulled into a wider war, this will derail the big, beautiful bill. It will derail so much of Trump's presidency. So I'm really hoping and praying this was a devastating, brilliant, effective strike. One and done. But only time will tell. 617-266-6868. Kim in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kim, and welcome.
Yeah, the answer to my question is to your poll question is exactly what you said. But I got a question for you with all this no king nonsense. Where does he stand on Burger King? I was getting dinner the other night for the family, pulling into one, and that wah 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 came into my head.
That is funny. That is funny. Kim, I'm just curious. Do you fear that we may see terrorist attacks here in America because of Biden's open border and the cells, these sleeper cells that they managed to come in with? Do you fear that they may mine the Strait of Hormuz, which is a key strategic chokehold, which would cut off 20% of the world's oil supply and cause oil prices to skyrocket? Do you fear they may attack Americans on bases and embassies or consulates across the region? Do you fear Iran, the blowback? Do you fear Iran's retaliation? Or are they just so weak? Have the Israelis just so weakened them? And I don't just mean now, but the last couple of years. You know, they knocked off Hamas, they knocked off Hezbollah, they knocked off the Houthis for the most part. They've degraded Iran's military and air defenses. And now they're just smashing Iran's ballistic missile program to pieces. So has Israel weakened Iran so much that they're basically now a paper tiger? They're all talk, no action. What say you, Kim?
Well, I fear it, but I guess we see Uncle Trump is not a man of no action. So I guess whatever whatever they think they're going to bring, he's already brought it. And but I do whatever the left in our country. I mean, what if anything? I guess could really happen. But he's going to bring it no matter what happens. But they've already tried to kill him twice. Like, I hope he's wearing like a flak jacket. And,
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, Kim, that's a great point. Great point. Kim, the connection's not the best, so I'm going to drop you, but thank you for that call. That's a great point. Look, I think there's no question now. I think Trump has to bolster his Secret Service protection. I think the mullahs now are going to definitely try to assassinate him. I think there's no question. And look, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I'm just speaking from the heart because I know it's true. I actually fear the Democrats and the left in terms of what's going to happen domestically more than the mullahs. You have to see them over the weekend. They've lost their minds. They're chanting pro-Iranian slogans. They are waving the Iranian flag. They are taking to the streets. They are vowing to bring their words, the intifada, to the United States. So I'm worried about massive political violence from Democrats or their supporters and the left. And to me, what's incredible is you look at their reflexive reaction. They're already calling for his impeachment. And you even have Thomas Massie, a Republican. He's a libertarian Republican, a sort of a Ron Paul style Republican, who now is going to side with the Democrats and the left. He's now come out and said Trump did not have authorization to attack, that this was illegal, unconstitutional, and now he's either going to support impeachment of the president, or at a bare minimum, he wants to force a vote whereby Congress has to authorize any future bombings or any future attacks by the United States on Iran or Iranian targets. So you have the America Last crowd licking their chops now to damage Trump politically. Now, Trump realizes over 80% of the American public support his decision to get rid of the nuke program in Iran. 80%, literally 80% of Americans say the world is much better off without a nuclear Iran. And so they support, it's an 80-20 issue for now. They support his decision to have removed the nuclear threat. But to me, the Democrats are going ballistic, and it's only going to get worse in the days to come. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Bruce in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome.
Well, the moon bats.
Oh, they're howling. Oh, are they howling, Bruce?
Oh my God, Jeff! I saw them on TV in New York. And they're protesting. These are anti-Americans. What what Trump did, our president, he saved an enormous amount of lives by not saying where he was going and what he was going to do. And what business it is? It's his business. It's our business. He's the guy we put in office to do the right thing. And you think he's going to go and tell somebody that he's going to... Are you kidding me, Jeff? And open the Pandora's box?
I think so far, the Iranians, it's all been their mouth flapping. They have done absolutely nothing in terms of a retaliation. Now, they may be planning something. Who knows? But Bruce, I got to tell you, if you just look at it today, Monday, the attack was Saturday. The mullahs they got nothing to respond with. So the question now is, has Trump broken the Ayatollahs? Or to be more accurate, have Trump and Israel broken the Ayatollahs? 750 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470. 70470. This is from 781, and it's a doozy. Jeff, the United States has been at war with Iran for over 40 years. And in particular, who is the main villain in all of this? Barack Obama. Just run the video in reverse. Without whose pallets of cash would none of this happen? Obama. Without whose order to Biden to open the border would the threat of terrorist sleeper cells be moot? Obama. If it's possible to hate the United States more than the mullahs, who would have such hatred? Obama. I got to tell you, and look, that's a big reason why we're in this mess. It goes all the way back to the dear leader. And I think that's why, as I said on X last night, Trump just rolled back Obama's presidency. I mean, that's why he's upset. His dream was to give radical Islam, i.e. the mullahs in Tehran, the bomb. And Trump now has destroyed that dream. Okay, this is from 617. Jeff, could it be time for another round of bunker busters? This time for the Iranian parliament, which just voted to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And just for good measure, answering the question, you threaten the United States with terror attacks, then the answer should be utter neutralization of those who threaten. So 617 says, keep going. Don't stop bombing. 617-266-6868 is the number. Now, just again, to be fair, Steve Bannon, as you know, a very long-time Trump ally, served as his chief strategist in his first term. He's considered a major MAGA influencer, has come out against the bombing. He says it is a big mistake. As he put it, this is part of World War III. He says we're essentially now in World War III, and that this is just another development of World War III. And yes, the strikes were, as he put it, spectacularly militarily successful, and the enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. But then Bannon went on to say that the costs of this, the long-term consequences, he now fears for Trump's presidency and the country. And he refers to a movie, the 1977 film, A Bridge Too Far. And according to him, he says that that the risks and losses associated with an attack on Iran are much greater than the short-term benefits. And in particular, here's what he said, that the country's number one strategic priority is to remain, quote, focused on the mass deportations of illegal aliens. I still argue, this is now Bannon directly, I still argue that as important as this is, as high a priority it is to stop the nuclear program at whatever stage it is for the Iranians, for us, you've got to rank order of strategic concerns. The vital national security interests of this country lie with us making sure that the 10 to 12 million illegal alien invaders that came here have to be deported, he said. And then he went on to say that the financial costs are going to be enormous. Quote, this is all costing a vast amount of money. Who's paying for that, he asked. Is Israel paying for that? No, they're not paying for it. You know who's paying for it. You. End quote. So, you've heard now from all sides almost. Did Trump make the right move, or is he opening a Pandora's box? 617-266-6868. Lines are blazing. Jeff in Chelsea. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Now, as far as the Iran-Israel-American war is concerned, my biggest concern is sleeper cells, because Boston is rife with soft targets. One of them is the Prudential Building and the John Hancock Tower. If Islamists put truck bombs by the Hancock Tower and bring that glass building down, it will spread glass all over the city, making 9/11 look like a Sunday school picnic, and the takedown of the grid. If you do those two things, you bring Boston right to its knees, and we are a blue state where people are not armed. Only the police and the military and the National Guard have arms. Regular people who go to work every day in Boston are unarmed. They might have arms in their houses, but not at work. The financial and the office districts are the most vulnerable. We need to take a vulnerability assessment and harden those targets. I've worked in security for over 25 years. And when it comes to security, most security officers are unarmed, except for banks and a few state places. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I think there's no question that if the Iranians activate their sleeper cells, I think Boston would be a key target for them. I'm not saying they will, but it's a soft underbelly. We know about the radicalized mosques in the city of Boston, in the greater Boston area. They hit us with the Boston Marathon bombing. Boston is a sanctuary city. So not only did Biden open up the borders, but if you're a terrorist and you want to, live on welfare and just keep plotting and plotting and plotting, I'm not saying there aren't other places, of course, but Boston would be a prime area. It's a sanctuary city, and Massachusetts is a sanctuary state. So, I would look at New York City. Same thing. I'd look at Chicago. I'd look at Washington, D.C., and I'd look at L.A. I'm not saying that's the only places, but I think those are the top targets that they would hit. And again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, Jeff, but I go back to Biden's, his disaster on the border. What he did was criminal. It was, first of all, it was look, the question I have for Thomas Massie, okay, the Kentucky Republican, the Libertarian, who's now teaming up with the left to either impeach Trump or at a minimum, he's now saying that the attack was unconstitutional and illegal, and that Trump needs congressional authorization if he wants to conduct any more future bombing campaigns. Where was Thomas Massie? Look, I'll be honest. He claims he's a strict constitutionalist. I respect that. I really do, okay? I admire that. But if he was consistent, I'd say, well, that's Thomas Massie. He's a strict constitutionalist. Doesn't matter who's in power. But where was he when Biden opened up the border unconstitutionally? Where was Massie? He said nothing. Where was Massie when the Democrats had unconstitutional sanctuary cities and sanctuary states? He said nothing. So what I'm saying is, or when Biden ignored the Supreme Court and continued to push for student loans, even though the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional, what did Massie say? Nothing. So when the Democrats trample on the Constitution, violate the Constitution again and again and again, he's like a mouse. You don't see Thomas Massie. But when Trump is in power, then he beats his chest. Then, here, I can play you the cut. Then he's running to NBC News, ABC, CNN. Then all of a sudden, There he is, waving the Constitution in Trump's face. Then, because now he's a hero to the left. Now, you see, when he attacked Biden, if he attacked Biden, he gets nowhere. But if he attacks Trump, then he gets all the airplay he can get. So listen now to Thomas Massey. This is him on CBS. Okay, he was on CBS over the weekend. Roll cut, remember, Kentucky Republican. Roll cut 31, Mike.
I think this, what has happened, what has transpired this week has been planned for months. This administration and maybe even the administration prior to that said, you go in and soften them up, take out their air defense capabilities, and then we'll send in the big bombers.
So he's almost saying there was a conspiracy between Bibi Netanyahu and Trump, maybe even between Bibi and Joe Biden, but at least between Bibi and Trump, that this was all planned, that Bibi, you go first, you soften them up, you degrade their defenses, and then you go out and say, I don't think we can finish it completely. And then Trump says, I come in and deliver the decisive final blow. So Massey now wants a full congressional investigation into the bombing, and we'll see if he agrees to articles of impeachment. But at a minimum now, he says what Trump did was illegal, it was criminal, it was unconstitutional, and according to him, he must be prevented from ever conducting strikes like this again without the express approval of Congress. And my question is, okay, Mr. Constitutionalist, I hear you. Where were you under Biden? Only now, when it's time to shiv Trump, do you open your big mouth. Jeff, final word to you.
Well, Jeff, as far as Republicans and Democrats are concerned, it's all kayfabe, fake WWF-style wrestling. The ones who are real get marginalized, and Normie Norm in the suburbs doesn't care until it hits him, and Normie Norm will vote for these communists because they get Normie Norm the money. It's all about the greenbacks. You vote for the Democrats and the power structure to get a good job and to get money until the terrorism attacks happen. And when it does, they'll just submit to the communist power structure when it takes over. Remember the Boston bombing when Deval Patrick took over? Deval hardly did anything. They got 2 small terrorist bombings. When this happens, it's going to be far worse. We are woefully unprepared. Thank you for the call, Jeff, and have a good one.
Thank you, Jeff. I agree with you. I'm not saying Trump's unprepared or his team. I'm talking about the ordinary American on the street, especially here in the People's Republic of Massachusetts. I'm telling you, most Democrats are hoping for, they're hoping for a terrorist attack because they want to blow up Trump's presidency. If Americans could be killed and they could then pin it and blame it on Trump, saying, you say, your war on Iran, look what it led to. They are siding with the mullahs, the ayatollahs. I want you to think about this. They're not just waving Palestinian flags now. Now they're waving the flags of the revolutionary Islamic regime of Iran, an Islamic fascist regime that has murdered thousands of Americans, that throws gays and lesbians off of rooftops, that imprisons political dissidents and tortures them and shoots them, that literally imprisons and murders women. You want to talk about one of the most repressive, misogynistic regimes on the face of the earth. If your hijab doesn't cover your entire, just a scintilla of hair, you get shot in the face. The most anti-Semitic regime on the planet. And you're chanting for them? You're defending them? Ay, ay, ay. I mean, seriously, ay, ay, ay. A regime for over 40 years, every freaking day. Death to America, death to Israel, death to the Jews. And that's who the Democrats are now siding with? And these protesters on the streets? Defending the mullahs, defending Iran? Look, they're fifth columnists. They're traitors. As I said on X last night, they are traitors. I mean, I don't know how much more obvious, clearer they can make it. They are the fifth column within. And now they've been completely unmasked, completely exposed. 617-266-6868. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ. And as always, welcome.
Yeah. First of all, Jeff, for those who object to what Trump did, okay, what part of death to America don't they understand? How ignorant can you be? They want a nuclear weapon. They want to wipe us off the map. That's what their goal is. And did we learn anything from allowing North Korea to acquire nuclear weapons? Apparently, with these people, we did not. And the other thing is this. You do not make military decisions based on fear. You only make military decisions for the survival of the United States, and that's when you take action. Now, the message is clear. Do not bleep with the United States. I do not want to hear BS about communist China, Russia challenging our brave military personnel. President Trump is a strong leader. He is not a scumbag coward like Lyndon Jackass Johnson. Since Johnson, all Democratic presidents make military decisions based on fear. And every bleeping one of them are nothing but cowards, okay? And the other thing I want to mention, all right? In 1964, if the Americans hadn't been bamboozled with the propaganda put out by the Democrats, okay, they would have voted for Barry Goldwater. The Vietnam would have ended in 6 months. We would have been victorious, and there wouldn't be 58,000 dead Americans and another 250,000 that suffer from the effects of war, okay? Now, the goal of the Democratic Party and the Ayatollah is the same, death to our way of life. And I'll tell you one thing, Jeff. I constantly criticize the ignorance of Massachusetts voters. And I'll tell you right now, I have more respect for the average Israeli than I do for the average voter in Massachusetts that welcomes leechism, sucking off the production of others. And the other thing is, first of all, the Israelis strive for excellence. They want to make them one of the best countries on the face of the earth. And also they give back. Most of them serve in the military. Most of them are ready to pick up arms to defend their country, okay? In the United States, we have 350 million people, and how many people do we have in our military here that's willing to put themselves at risk? 1.2 million? What about the rest of them, okay? I'm tired of it. I'm tired for the people in this country that get a free ride all the way around.
Russ, of course I hear you. No question about it. But I just want to ask you this, because you've served multiple tours in Vietnam. As you just mentioned, I think you were, by the way, brilliant. Had we voted for Barry Goldwater in 1964, we would have had no Vietnam War, or would have been won conclusively within a matter of months. And all the other disasters the Democrats gave us, the Great Society, I could go on and on. So you're completely right, Russ. But as someone who served 2 terms in Vietnam, you know how a war can go sideways. You know how generals always predict a cakewalk. It's going to be easy. We're going to win this thing. And, you know, they did it in Iraq. They did it in Afghanistan. They did it in Vietnam. So my question to you, I'm not talking about the average moonbat in Massachusetts. People like Bannon, people like Tucker Carlson, people who are, were our big Trump supporters, helped him win the election. They're concerned that this could suck us into a larger war with Iran, and Iran will have the backing of Russia and China, and then Trump's now a wartime president, and that really derails so much of his agenda that we wanted him to accomplish. Are you concerned about that at all, Russ?
And remember one thing, that bastard Lyndon Baines Johnson, all right, he didn't go ahead and mine their ports, cut off their supply line and everything else, because he was a coward. he was afraid of China and Russia getting involved more militarily than they did. Okay, and remember they supplied North Vietnam without question. All right, so. No, Jeff, I'm not fearful of that whatsoever, and they are wrong because, let's face it, they were on the fast track to create a nuclear weapon. And these idiots that turn around and say, well, leave it up to the Israelis. They didn't have that bomb that could take out that site. We only had that bomb. We were the only ones able to do that, okay? And I'm sick and tired of listening to stupid, ignorant people out there that they caused the wars for trying to be pacifists and idiots. And I'm tired of it, Jeff. The president has guts, and he did the right thing, and God bless America.
Russ, thank you very, very much for that call. So a full-throated support of Trump. He says he did the exact, and maybe the only thing he could have done. I mean, sure, you can always kick the can down the road, but faced with the threat of the mullahs, months away, if not weeks away from acquiring the bomb, we had no choice but to go in and just smash their nuclear enrichment facilities and destroy the core of their nuclear program. That on this, Bannon, Tucker Carlson, and many others are either naive, wrong, or both. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quick reset, and then I want to go right back to the blazing phone lines. Trump makes one of the most momentous, important decisions of his presidency, and in many ways, shaping the direction of the Middle East and the world. He ordered now B-2 stealth bombers to drop bunker busters. Natanz and Isfahan and Fordo are gone. 8:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Keith in North Carolina. Thanks for holding, Keith, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. At first I was a little uncertain about the strike, but the more I think about it, the more it was probably a good risk prevention. And I don't think many other countries are really going to do much. Even Putin himself said last weekend that half of Israel speaks Russian. And so I don't really think they'll get involved. And if the Ayatollahs and the mullahs make more mistakes, saying hitting an American base, that's just going to enrage the 32 other NATO countries and get everyone else to really, push for a regime change.
Well, I got to say, Keith, the mullahs are so weak now that it would be an act of suicide, I think, if they hit American bases or, were behind terrorist attacks, say, on American embassies or consulates or even here on the homeland. I think Trump has now proven himself, that he would use massive, overwhelming, decisive military force. And with the regime teetering, I mean, they're almost begging to be overthrown. So, I agree with you. The only wild card, Keith, because again, look, you're a rational man. I'm a rational man. People who listen to this show are rational. But you're not dealing with rational people in Tehran. I mean, they are irrational. We're dealing with medieval 7th century religious fanatics. In fact, Keith, look, don't even take my word for it. There is a clip going around. It's from a female political analyst in Tehran on Iranian state media. She's crazy. I mean, she's considered one of their big political experts or analysts. So, think of somebody that you watch on Fox or, whoever, highly respected. And you got to see her. She's crazy. She's going on and on about how she thanks us for blowing up Fordo because now the Iranian people are going to rise up and Iran is now going to become a great global power and that this is now going to bring about the doom of the United States, that this is now going to be an eternal war and Americans are going to die. And like her eyes are almost rolling in her skull. And she's like, down with America, down with imperialism, down with the Jews, down with Zionism. I mean, you just listen to this and I'm like, I don't think they're going to back down. I mean, these are the people they have on TV. Honestly, she didn't say it, but the insinuation is that the mullahs haven't been crazy enough. And the other thing, Keith, that people, I'm telling you, you have to see this. Even in her monologue. Now remember, Trump killed Qasem Soleimani 5 years ago. Okay, that was 5 years ago. The head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. In the middle of her insane rant, she stops and says, how could you have killed our Soleimani, our dear Soleimani? And she grabs her head and she's looking at the sky like, God, Allah, how could you have allowed that to happen? So you can tell by her reaction that Soleimani was sort of like really their chief military strategist. You know, he was their, I don't know, their Eisenhower, their MacArthur, their Patton. He was almost the indispensable military man. And that they've never recovered from that blow that Trump delivered by taking out Soleimani. It's almost like, she's not saying it, but it's almost like we don't have anybody competent enough, a great general, who can lead us in this holy war against America. But then, right away, she's back to, you're going to see suicide bombers, you're going to have no peace in the Middle East, you're going to have no peace in America. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, she's a crazy fanatic. Like, I'm telling you, you strap bombs onto her, she'll be happy to go on a bus full of school children and just blow herself up and take everybody with her. So, Keith, my only point is, when you're dealing with people like this, yeah, rationally, you're completely right. But we're not dealing with rational people. These people are primitive savages. Final word to you, Keith.
Yeah, was that the same reporter from the IRGC news headquarters that got bombed a second later?
No, that was a different one. But
okay. Well, I got to say, I looked at the metrics, and 80% of the diaspora that left Iran into like America and some of these other countries are overwhelmingly against the mullahs and the Ayatollah regime, and they want back, something like the Shah or something more pro-West.
Well, that's the wild card, is how are the people of Iran going to respond? Now, again, Trump maybe he has intelligence. He's got intelligence that I don't have, you don't have, we don't have. So maybe he's hearing about rumblings, or there's a political organization or a dissident movement now that's reaching out to him. And maybe now he's pushing, that's why he's pushing for regime change, or at least talking about regime change. So, look, Keith, if the mullahs fall, and it doesn't descend into like what happened in Iraq, where it's a free-for-all, where it's sectarian, bombings, killings, chaos, anarchy, if there's any kind of a stable, viable government, it doesn't even have to be pro-Western, honest to God. I mean, it'd be nice. If it's just sane, just a sane government, a neutral, sane government, and says, no, we're not interested in nuclear bombs, we don't want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, we don't want to bring about the end of days, we're not looking at bringing in the Shia Messiah in a great ball of fire, we just want to have a normal country. Mwah, mwah, I kiss on two cheeks. Like, Trump will go down as one of the greatest presidents ever. 8:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Okay, my friends, as you know, Trump's people listen to this show. And the last, I'd say 10 days in particular, they've been listening very, very closely. Not just me, but other conservative, influential conservative talk show hosts. MAGA influencers, podcasters, to just get a sense, a temperature of where the base is, where Trump supporters and voters are. And one of the things now that they're concerned about, or at least they want to find out more, is where do Trump supporters stand on the issue of regime change in Iran? Now, as you know, initially Trump and his entire national security team said that this bombing strike, spectacular, successful, devastating, was essentially a one and done. However, Trump has now opened the door that if Iran does retaliate, there will be even more massive and deadly strikes to come. Now, on Sunday yesterday, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, all three of them, did the media rounds, and all of them said unconditionally, we are not interested in regime change. Listen, I'll just, as an example, listen now to J.D. Vance. He was on Meet the Mess with Kristen Welker, and she asked the all-important question, are we now at war with Iran? Listen to J.D.'s response. Roll cut 22A, Mike.
Mr. Vice President, is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. And let me just say, Kristen, that we're incredibly grateful and proud of the American Air Force pilots who did an incredible job last night. The operation was really extraordinary. These guys flew from Missouri. They didn't land a single time. They dropped 30,000-pound bombs on a target the size of a washing machine, and then got back home safely without ever landing in the Middle East or ever stopping other than to briefly refuel. And, of course, they did that in the air. So it's really an incredible operation, a testament to the power of American military. And I think what shows what can happen when you have that great American military in the hands of capable presidential leadership.
I agree with him, and not 100, as I like to say, 1,000%. But notice what he said. We're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. In other words, you end the program and let the mullah stay. We don't care. That's for the Iranian people to decide. This, though, changed, or at least it's now muddied the waters. After all of this, Trump then went on Truth Social, and he now left the door open for bringing about the end of Iran's government. Not just its nuclear program, but literally the Ayatollah's regime itself. Now, here is what he wrote. I'm going to read it to you completely. He wrote it on Truth Social. Quote, it's not politically correct to use the term regime change. But if the current Iranian regime is unable, and he puts it all in caps, to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? And then he writes MIGA. Instead of MAGA, MIGA, all in caps, M-I-G-A, 3 exclamation points after that. Make Iran great again. Now, let me throw this on the table. Is Trump moving the goalpost? This is what I mean. That's why, to be fair to Bannon and to others, that's why Bannon is worried. I'm not saying he's right, but that's why Bannon is worried. Are we getting pulled into a larger war? Almost piece by piece by piece. First, Trump said, no, we're going to let Israel handle it. Then maybe we'll bomb. Now we're bombing. Now it's we may continue to bomb if Iran doesn't come back to the peace table. And now it's, well, maybe it's time for regime change. So my question to you, are we being slowly sucked into a larger war against Iran, in which if we do push for regime change, then we will own the country the way we owned it after Iraq, meaning you break it, you own it. You have to fix it. You have to somehow provide the stability that you promised after overthrowing a regime. And so my question to you, are we going down the road of regime change? Is this now going to become not a bombing to end the nuclear program, but a regime change war, like we saw in Afghanistan, like we saw in Iraq? And if the president does take us down this road and makes this now about regime change, do you think it's good or bad for America? In other words, could we be slowly sleepwalking into Iraq 2.0? 617-266-6868 is the number. You know my position on this. I don't like regime change wars. I think it's very hard to predict what's going to happen after you overthrow a regime. Yes, the Ayatollahs are hated, no question. Saddam was hated as well. But what came after was in some ways even worse. Anarchy, chaos, civil war. And on top of all of this, J.D. Vance has now said the uranium enrichment stockpile, the Iranian regime was able to get that out. So they can't make any more. Their program has been destroyed. But they still have that stockpile of uranium enriched fissile material, which is enough to make a nuclear bomb. It's a small bomb, but it's still there. If the country descends into pure anarchy, terrorists can get hold of it, and my God, what can they do with it? So I say no regime not that I don't want the mullahs to fall, but I want the Iranian people to topple them from within. I don't think, I don't want us to go in there and force the regime change, because then we're all in and we're completely involved. And this could lead to a long, whether Trump wants it or not. Then it leads to an occupation. Then it leads to ground troops, boots on the ground. And Iran is a big country, a mountainous country. And you can see guerrilla warfare like we saw in Iraq and Afghanistan. So my position, as you know, is crystal clear. No regime change war. If the mullahs fall, let it come from the Iranian people themselves. But that's me. I want to hear it from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. William in Lexington. Thanks for holding, William, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, William?
I'm good. I just want to say, I hope everyone understands that when there is an October 7th attack here on American soil, it has nothing to do with Trump dropping bombs on nuclear facilities. That was already going to happen, and it would have happened 4 years earlier if Hillary got into office.
William, are you anticipating something of that scale? Is that what you fear?
Have you not listened to Sarah Adams at all?
Well, just for our audience, William, who is Sarah Adams?
Sarah Adams is a CIA targeter that has worked with many military personnel in Afghanistan when we left there and left all our weapons for them to, well, for one, do their October 7th attack, and left all our intel that was Afghani there. Our military that was no longer in the military.
William, please do me a favor. Hang on. I'm up against a hard break. Very important call. Please hang on. And we're going to come right back to William. He's now saying, brace yourselves, be prepared. There could be an October 7 here. 49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go right back to William in Lexington. He says if there is an October 7th style massacre, an Islamic terrorist attack sponsored by Iran on American soil, don't blame Trump for dropping those bombs at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. It has nothing to do with Trump. This has been years in the making because of our abandonment of Afghanistan. all of the weapons that Biden left behind, as well as vital national security and intelligence information. William, I just got to say this before I come back to you. I have on my phone screener board, I've got obviously full lines. And the way we do it here on the Kuhner Report is it's name and then town. So I'm just going to make it up. It's like Jim in Drake-it. With you, and you're the only one, and I don't know why, it's a bit creepy, it's your phone number, and there's your name in very like small letters beside Lexington. And Mike is telling me that's because there was a glitch in the computer. And here you are warning about a possible October 7th. So I'm not going to lie to you, William. I'm getting some chills down my back. You know, and anyway, so when you make a prediction like this, I'm getting a little nervous. But Mike and Sandy are reassuring me that I'm making too much out of this. But still. So anyway, William, you're talking about Sally Adams. She is a CIA insider who blew the whistle on how badly Biden left behind all of these weapons, all of this very sensitive intelligence. Please pick up where you left off, William.
Jeff, I'm not actually William Wallace from Lexington. So that might explain why it comes up different on your computer.
William, please. So you're saying you think it's almost inevitable that we're going to have this kind of an attack on American soil, William?
I believe it is. I mean, right down to the Chinese with a bio lab in California, I don't know, I would say, 3 or 4 years ago or whatever, right down to letting in all these immigrant gangs. Right, don't get me wrong, 75% of the people that cross the border, after all, they did tell us it was only going to be families and women and children. Meanwhile, you can literally see train cars coming over the border, like freight trains with people all in the back waving flags, mostly men, by the way. This is all part of the Democratic globalist plan to destroy America. I mean, I don't know why you people can't, play the puzzle. Have you never used the puzzle before? All the pieces are there, that it's not going to be good.
And but if you don't mind, William, just tie it back to Afghanistan because you that's where you were going with prior to the break, please. So you're saying ultimately what happened in Afghanistan, you're saying is going to trigger an October 7th here, correct?
It goes back further than that. It goes back to Obama dismantling our military. It goes back to Joe Biden selling our oil in the strategic reserve. It's everything. It's every little piece. It's okay, so, yes, the whole, it ain't just 1,800, Iranians. There's the Taliban, there's ISIS, there's 8,000 terrorists in this country that just so happen to walk across our border without, we're not gonna, do research on people who's coming over the border. No, just everybody come on over. Do you really think they came here to get free welfare and Medicaid? I mean, come on.
Well, William, I played a cut. It was maybe a year ago now. I mean, don't quote me, but it was a man from the Middle East, and it was Bill Malugin who I think tracked him down. But he came across the border completely unvetted. He just walked in. He waltzed in. And the reporter asked, it may not have been Bill Malugin, but anyway, the reporter said, well, who are you? And he said, you don't know who I am? Well, soon you and everyone is going to know who I am and what my name is. And I haven't forgotten that. It was a clear threat. He was basically saying as much as he could possibly say. I am a terrorist, and I'm here to kill Americans, and it's going to be a massive terrorist attack. It's going to be so big, you're going to remember my name like the Tsarnaevs, for example. Like, you will know my name. By the time I'm done, you will know who I am. Now, that's just one that Biden let in. That's just one. And you've got Tom Homan here. If you want, William, I know you know this better than I do, but here's Tom Homan stating unequivocally, let me see if I can track it down here. But here's Tom Homan saying, oh no, at least 1,300 Iranian nationals were allowed to come into the United States under Biden that we know of. I can't find that cut right now, but anyway, when I find it, I promise I am going to here it is. I got it. Here it is. He was on Fox. Roll cut 51. Mike.
How many Iranians are in the country that are in sleeper cells trying to do bad to America right now?
Well, look, you and I have talked about this many times. I said the last 4 years my biggest concern was this open border was the biggest national security vulnerability this country's ever seen. So I pulled numbers this morning just from a CBP under Joe Biden. There was 1,272 nationals of Iran released in the country between OFO and the Border Patrol. And you compare that to the Trump administration, zero. Right, zero releases. And right now, because of President Trump's leadership, we have the most secure border in my lifetime, most secure border in the history of this nation. So we have a secure border. That was President Trump's big win on securing this nation. So we're not releasing people in this country. Special interest aliens aren't crossing that border undetected.
Now, the point is, it was catch and release. We caught them and we released them. So we know of 1,272 to be exact, 1,300. So we know it's almost 1,300 that we know of. How many others like that guy saying, you don't know who I am, or you're going to know who I am soon. So you're right, William. They opened the floodgates. And man, we've got terrorist sleeper cells all over the country. William, final word to you.
For one, Jeff, I actually sent that clip of that terrorist coming over the border to my liberal friends, and they said to me, Mexicans are terrorists now? Meanwhile, there's like 177 countries that were coming across our border. Dude, this is such a long-term plan. This is so deep, right down to framing Trump in bed with Russia. So Putin was trying to win the first election for Trump. Meanwhile, then it went into a war with Afghanistan only because we took over their Russian country, their pro-Russian government, and installed our own little people. It's our own government that's doing this to us, and I don't know. So then, therefore, when the Ukraine war starts up, now all of a sudden you got all these morons thinking that Putin's the bad guy. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be confused as a Putin supporter, but when he had that interview with Tucker, and it was like 2 hours long, the only thing I thought to myself when we had Joe Biden in charge was, could you imagine if we had a president that could speak for 2 hours?
William, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Brooks in North Carolina. Thanks for holding, Brooks, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Your last caller did an excellent review of how scary things are, but I would remind him that General Keane, for example, who was head of our intelligence, has come out and said, look, during complicated times, you need a leader to make a simple choice. And we did not have a choice. These mullahs were days, months, hours away from, it's not the uranium, it's the launch capability. And that's what people have to understand. You can enrich uranium. I mean, we can, that's not the complexity. The complexity is giving it GPS guidance and launch. That's what we just blew up, people. We just blew up their ability to launch. Now, can we get the uranium? Probably. Does it mean that we have to enforce regime change? No. But look, I think the byproducts of that naturally could happen. Let's pray that the next person in line that is after Trump, like our vice president, continues on this campaign. We have to pound it into these mullahs that are not welcome anymore. They're going to be in the dustbin of history, and hopefully we can pray that the Iranian people get their country back. I love what he posted on I love what Trump posted, make Iran great again. God bless him. You know, Jack Hibbs just did a beautiful Sunday sermon, and he played for everybody in Chino, California, Trump's message to his entire Sunday service. And, you know, again, he's calling it providential. You just watched the President of the United States address the nation and address God directly. He addressed Yahweh, our Creator. That takes chutzpah. And God love him, man. This is, he had to do it. He had to do it. Listen, everybody just needs to relax. If we can find these January 6ers with this high-tech capability, call it the good bad guys, Trump's got a hold of the agencies now. We're going to find these, you know, Iranians here. He's not stupid. He knows how to do this stuff, and he's got the right intelligence to do it. Trump is going to turn this country around, and he had to show force. Look at the effect it's going to have on China. Look at the effect it's going to have on Zelensky. Zelensky's dreaming about the relationship Trump has with Netanyahu. It's providential. Trump addressed God directly. We ought to be thanking God for Trump, because Trump is you know, he's got it right. This is a very complex condition. General Keane had it right. He had to do it. Look, I mean, we either live or we're dead, man. These mullahs are going to launch. So we just took out their ballistic capabilities. That's what I want people to understand. The enriching of the uranium, yes, of course they've moved it. But, you know, in order to put uranium 1,500 miles into the air, you need GPS launch systems. Those are very, very complex guided missiles. We just obliterated those, you know, welding systems, the encasements, the nuts, the bolts, the satellite. All of that is, you know, in rubble.
Well, we've set them back for many years. I think there's no question. Brooks, let me ask you this, because this is what's developed now just in the last 24 hours. Russia's number 2, Medvedev, the former president of Russia, has come out, apparently speaking on behalf of the Russian government, i.e. Putin, that the Russians or the Chinese, or maybe even the Pakistanis, but he says because of this bombing strike, which the Russians claim is illegal, they say it's criminal, that it violates international law. I'm just giving you their argument, that this was, quote, a war of aggression. That's what they're saying. That now either the Russians or the Chinese or the Pakistanis are going to give Iran the bomb. They're going to give them the nuclear missiles with the missile launchers to potentially launch them. So you've got, and the Iranian foreign minister is apparently in Moscow now, meeting directly with Putin, consulting what Putin wants them to do next. And apparently Xi now is coordinating with the supreme leader. So my point is just this, or my question is this, Brooks. What if one of their backers, I don't care if it's China, Russia, Pakistan, take your pick, say, you know what, they don't have to make it. We're going to give it to them. We're going to give it to them on a silver platter. Now, we're not giving it to them for them to use it, but we're going to give it to them so if Israel ever attacks them again, or the United States ever attacks them again, then the mullahs can rain death and destruction and wipe out millions of people. That will be the ultimate deterrence. What do we do then? That's the question. What say you, Brooks?
I tell you what we do then. The Chinese are going to learn, and they're going to learn real good. This is not Joe Biden they're dealing with. They're going to sit there and posture this incestuous relationship between, it's not just China and Russia. You know, you might as well add North Korea into the mix. I think that they're going to try to push this as far as they can, but ultimately Trump will pound China with tariffs. Ultimately, he will destroy relationships with Putin, and he's going to put extreme pressure to end the Ukrainian conflict. So I don't, look, let's just break it down to brass tacks. The only country that could really get a nuclear, call it facility, into Iran at this point would be that unholy alliance. And I think Trump is going to use his tariffs, to answer your question, to break it, to destroy that possibility through China. China is on economic, on the deathbed with their economy. And if Trump as much raises the tariffs just a few points, that's going to be the negotiating poker chip, to answer your question.
Interesting. Brooks, thank you very much for that call. So Brooks is basically saying Trump's, and by the way, he is working the phones. I mean, as I speak, he's talking to Putin, talking to Xi. He's saying, don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. Just don't do it. Because then I'm going to have to escalate against you. And, the comeback to Putin is, you know what? I can send Zelensky another $200 billion package. I mean, if you want to go, I don't want to do it, but if you're going to force me, Vladimir, you want a lot more Russians to die? You want this war to go on for a couple more years? Is that what you want? Just don't give the mullahs the bomb. That's it. And you mentioned Xi. Xi, I can tear your whole economy down. I can tariff you guys into a Great Depression. Don't do it. It's not worth it. So but what I'm saying is now it's really 3D chess. That's what I'm saying. And that's why if we can just, quiet everything down, and for the next couple of weeks, then we're out. I think then the mullahs are going to be so consumed with the massive domestic opposition and the dissidents in their country, they may not even be able to launch a counterattack if they wanted to. Thank you very much for that call, Brooks. 617-266-6868. Liam in Charlestown. Thanks for holding, Liam, and welcome. Liam? Okay, let's go to Bob in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Bob.
I'm very disappointed in you. I always liked Steve Bannon, but it turned out now he's a puke. He's a scared puke. And I'm not diplomatic. I'm not, and I'm a Vietnam veteran, a Marine, and that's beside the point. But my opinion is from a non-ordinary person's view is China will do nothing, Russia will do nothing. When is this country going to nut up again and say, all right, hey, I got the bat, bring it on, we'll bring it on, see what you got to do. That's my opinion.
So you think, Bob?
I think Russia will do nothing. China will do.
Okay, for some, I don't know why, Bob. You just literally dropped on us. But basically, you think Bannon is basically chickening out, or he's lost his nerve. You called him a puke, but that basically he's lost his nerve, and that that China in the end will take it, Russia will take it, the Pakistan will take it, because they have so much more to lose by giving Iran any kind of a nuclear weapon or nuclear missile delivery capability. And that in the end, Trump made the exact right decision. Do we still have Bob, or did we lose Bob? I think
he used to be with him.
Yes, there you are. We got you back.
What are you going to do?
Go ahead, Bob.
What are you going to do? As long as these people who used to be with him puking out on him, what's he going to do? I always admired Steve Bannon, but he's turned out to be a puke. That's my opinion.
Bob, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Tom, red, white, and blue dynamite baby in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Jeff Kuhner, disabling Iranian nuclear weapons. That's red, white, and blue dynamite, baby.
So, Tom, just by your intro, I take it you back Trump all the way, correct?
On a limited military campaign, I backed it, Jeff. I gave it a lot of thought and prayer. And my thoughts were being that this is not Iraq 2.0 and Afghanistan 2.0 for the simple reason that Trump is and never will be in the military-industrial complex. And by the fact that Obama sent the cargo plane full of billions of dollars. That told me that this is real. And those lefty traders just kicked the can down the road, including our good friend, the peanut farmer who started all this, Jimmy Carter, and left it for our ace, our F-35 pilot, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, and the conservative constitutional Republicans that had to deal with this, Jeff. But, yeah, I know the possibility of escalation is clear. They closed the Gulf of Hormuz. Escalation. If China and Russia try to assist them, like Michael Savage, our friend, said, and lend them nukes, they'll just have to be under constant surveillance. And as soon as they get close, we'll bomb them out again, Jeff. It's a sad way to live. And I'm praying, this is where God in prayer comes, that regime change. That Ayatollah, the Lucifer incarnate, needs to be...
Oh, he is the devil. There's no question. Tom, I want to ask you a very important follow-up. Can you please just hang on? I'm up against it. We're going to go right back to Tom. Continue to take your calls. Don't touch that dial. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Tom, red, white, and blue dynamite baby in New Jersey. He said he prayed about it a lot. Tom is a devout Catholic like myself. And Tom says as long as it's a limited military strike and it's not the prelude to, say, a regime change war or us getting bogged down in a larger war against Iran, Tom says Trump made clearly the right decision. Tom, I've got to ask you this because you're a very sober guy. You're not a yahoo. You don't just pop your cork and do something in anger. You're very considered. You're very measured. You're in many ways a realist when it comes to politics and foreign policy. So I want to ask you this, Tom. If the Iranians shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and they are threatening to do it, their parliament just voted to do it, now it's all up to the supreme leader. If he signs off on it, the Iranian Navy is going to choke off that entire Strait of Hormuz, and 20% of the world's oil supply, shipping, is going to be shut down, and it's going to lead to massive increases in the price of gas and what we pay at the pump. Long story short, Rubio has said, you shut down the Strait of Hormuz, the United States will respond with a massive military retaliation. In other words, more strikes, more bombing. And this time they say they could hit even economic targets, like their oil production and their oil facilities. My question to you, Tom, just to play devil's advocate, if the mullahs retaliate, say by shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, should the United States launch even more bombing campaigns, more bomb attacks, more airstrikes, more missile strikes? Or is that going to slowly now bog us down into a larger widening war with Iran? If they cut off Hormuz, what should Trump do?
Well, Jeff, I tell you, if we continue the campaign of energy independence, and we were actually a net exporter, then it becomes a global problem. Then the sleepy Europeans might have to get up, leave their siestas and their vacations and do something about it. And perhaps we can guide them. Maybe we have to get involved. Maybe we don't. Let's drill, baby, drill, and keep making America first. And, you know, Jeff, they've been taking shots at us for a long time. I mean, defensive counterstrikes. I mean, I'm a man of God, your God-given right of self-defense. I mean, we certainly don't have to sit there and be shot at, but let's see if the rest of the world can step up and join this campaign against evil, because it's good versus evil. I know the left that despises talk like that, but that's what this is. And we have God's president before us, and he will do the right thing, and we will do the right thing. Ground troops, hey, Israel, that's on you. And we've been great partners, and peace through strength, And I believe this is not the military-industrial complex. This is like World War II. This is the just war. And let's be very measured and very careful about it. And the Holy Spirit will guide us. Man makes mistakes. The Holy Spirit doesn't make any mistakes.
Tom, thank you very much for that call. I'm getting some incredible texts coming in. I know I say it over and over again. Best audience in the business. Jeff, you sound like a broken record. Hey, it's true. I don't know what else to tell you. This is from 512. Jeff, whether in politics or mathematics, the quote-unquote correct answer depends upon the quote-unquote correct assumptions. For example, a skyscraper built on faulty geometry will collapse. Well, the dangerous and false assumption to make about the Iranian theocracy is that basically people are people, and all of us are interchangeable, and we all want the same things. Peace, prosperity, a better life for our children. Well, that describes the West, or at least it did. The Iranian theocracy is nothing of the sort. The only aspect of this world to which it responds is power, force. It experiences kindness and humanity as weakness and rot to be disposed of no differently than stoning a woman whose face covering slips. So in other words, that's all they know is force. That's all they understand is force. Okay, this is from 781. Jeff, the Trump administration must protect the American people, especially at airports, trains, and bus stations, and large sporting events or concerts, because the left and the media, in a sick way, are hoping that we get hit on the homeland so they can end Trump's surging popularity and bring the MAGA movement to an end. Bingo. Bingo. The left and the Democrats and the media would love nothing more than for Americans to get blown up and killed by terrorist sleeper cells here in America, so they can blame Trump, drive down his popularity, and break the MAGA movement. Okay, 617-266-6868 is the number. Should Trump go for regime change? He put out a tweet yesterday, or a post on Truth Social, saying it's time to make Iran great again, MIGA as he called it, for regime change. Should we go for regime change? Your call's next. 9:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, 70470 if you want to text in. 70470. This is from 617. And again, brilliant point. Jeff, it's important to remember how we got here. Hillary Clinton supplied Iran with uranium to enrich their nuclear program. Barack Obama gave Iran $1.7 billion that they used to fund their nuclear program. And Joey, again, operating under the orders of Obama, unfroze over $16 billion of funds for the mullahs in Iran. So don't even try to blame this on Trump. Brilliant. Brilliant. 617-266-6868. Okay. Let me throw very quickly one more, and this is the final log on today's show. Democrats now, as you know, are pushing for the impeachment of President Trump over his decision to bomb Iran and their core nuclear program. Listen now to Congressman Ro Khanna. He's a left-wing Democrat from California on CBS Face the Nation. Roll cut 30, Mike.
Now you've put American troops at risk. Now you're wasting billions of our dollars because we're sending more troops to the Middle East. What did you accomplish, and why are you oblivious to the American people who are sick of these wars?
So, by the way, now you guys worry about wasting money? After the trillions and trillions you guys flushed down a rat hole under both Obama and the Biden regime. I mean, it's unbelievable. But anyway, so that's the argument, that he did not get congressional authorization. He did not get congressional approval. And so because of this, they now say they are going to impeach him. And leading the charge is Congresswoman AOC, Alexandria Fidel Castro Cortez. She now says that Trump should have asked for congressional approval. Because he didn't ask for congressional approval, she now says Congress must impeach the President of the United States. So, my question to you, if Trump wants to do another air campaign or a missile strike or a bombing campaign in response to any kind of retaliation by the Ayatollahs, whether it's a terrorist attack here on American soil or his proxies, the mullahs as proxies, striking out at our troops or bases in the Middle East, or cutting off the Strait of Hormuz, should Trump go to Congress to get an authorization to bomb or attack Iran in the future? Should Trump now go to Congress to get approval for any future strikes or attacks on Iran? Yes or no? 617-266-6868. And do you believe, like many Democrats and Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, that what Trump did was illegal, and should he be impeached? I say these people are insane, but that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Paul in Acton. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Paul.
You're lighting a candle in the darkness of these evil times. The definition of evil is that it bears the seeds of its own destruction, whereas our good president really has a future for all of us if only we will back him, and I do. All of the questions that are being raised are very reasonable, and I think Steve Bannon is a thoughtful man. I think many people are very thoughtful, but in the face of these evils, we have the War Powers Act of '73 that allows the president to exercise his powers in the face of emergency. Well, we've had an emergency for 46 years since '79, and the consequences are apparent to anyone who's at all aware of what's going on. Many of your callers over the last few days, they throw up their hands and say, well, I don't know about the details. Well, the details are important, and this administration, in contrast to Sleepy Joe, is taking care of details. So we're very fortunate to have him, and we're fortunate to have you. You are a candle in the midst of darkness, and so I wanted to call your attention to, in answer to the question of regime change, all over the net now you see news coming out of Iran that many people are abandoning Islam. There's an interview on one of the Israeli networks of a man who grew up as a 19-year-old beating himself over his head in the Shiite fashion of self-flagellation. But when he finally read the Gospel of Matthew, he saw an amazing vision that converted him eventually to Christianity. He lives in Israel. The interview is really very moving. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube. But we're in amazing times, and I believe that we have to just follow our hearts and follow our minds as well, because that missed bullet in Pennsylvania has, among many other amazing things, has brought us to a cusp in the history of of our time. So,
I agree. Look, I think there's no question. We're living in historic times. We're living in momentous times. Really, truly. And I know we're in the eye of the storm now, so it's kind of hard to digest and process everything. But I want to remind people, we're living in a time where 50 years from, 25 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, I can't tell you the history books, the number of history books that are going to be written about Israel's decision to take out Iran's nuclear facilities and their ballistic missile program, Trump's decision to now just finish the job, essentially, at least when it comes to Iran's nuclear weapons program, to just obliterate it, just utterly destroy it. And then the consequences for the region, and especially if the mullahs do fall. And we're going to see now. Look, the only thing I would just say, Paul, and I agree with your sentiments completely, is having read pieces by people who've been to Iran, who have family in Iran, they keep stressing this. The mullahs are not popular. The mullahs are deeply hated by the majority of the population. But they go, what Americans don't understand is how beaten down the population is, how exhausted they are. It's been 46 years of nonstop repression and torture and shootings and imprisonments. And they've had multiple green movements where they thought the West was with them, and then they were abandoned. And so they're saying, I don't know if there's going to be an uprising. And it's not because they support the mullahs. It's just that 46 years will exhaust and beat down any people. So whether there's an appetite for an uprising and a regime change, you know, it's easy for us to say it, but, you know, we're dealing with stone cold killers, butchers, murderers, fanatics, and they've been killing a lot of Iranians for a long time. So maybe Israel can help foment some of this unrest. Maybe there's going to be a leader that emerges that can galvanize the people. I mean, I don't know. But look, if the people rise up against the mullahs, my God, the Israel, the region, America, the world will be an incredibly safer place. Incredibly safer. Look, really, I don't know what it's like to live without constantly having to read about the mullahs threatening some country, some attack, some terrorist activity. I was 10 years old when they took over Tehran and took Americans hostage and overthrew the Shah. So we've been living in the shadow of blackmail and terrorism by the mullahs, at least I have, for most of my life. That this threat would be completely now wiped out if the people overthrow them? It's almost like I can't imagine life, you know, like, it's like, really? I can't imagine life without it. We're just so used to it. So, no question now, this is a watershed moment in world history. 9:51 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay. The Dems are, as I've been saying, they're in an absolute uproar. They're going berserk. They're calling for Trump's impeachment. But I want to play a cut. This is Hillary Rotten Clinton in 2008 when she was running for President of the United States against Barack Hussein Obama. And listen to what the Hildeby said should she win the presidency, what she would do to Iran and its nuclear program. And this was 17 years ago, when their program was much more in its infancy than it was now. Roll cut 103, a mic.
And I want the Iranians to know that if I'm the president, we will attack Iran. Whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them. That's a terrible thing to say, but those people who run Iran need to understand that, because that perhaps will deter them from doing something that would be reckless, foolish, and tragic.
If I win, I'm bombing Iran. Boom, it's over. Checkmate. So when Hillary was for bombing Iran, so were the Democrats. Trump bombs Iran, and now they want to impeach him. Blank off. 617-266-6868. You phonies, you frauds, you. Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Well, this is one of the greatest days in American history that I have ever seen. What you witnessed was the absolute expression for deterrence. You can't have peace without strength, and this country showed the military, showed the world just what our military is capable of. There has never been in the history of this civilization on Earth what was carried out on Saturday. And not only that, you know that this had to be planned for a long time. You could not have gotten that coordination and that plan and that precision without long-term planning and putting all those resources and assets in place. And number one, everybody talks about the fact that they think that Iran was playing Trump. I think he was playing them and stalling them and getting this all set, knowing full well, and we all know full well, they were never going to turn around and come to any agreement that we were going to give them. So I think Trump played them, if you ask me, because he needed the time to get this done, and it was all done well. First, it was Israel had the plan to clear the skies so that we wouldn't have any threat to our boys. And boy, I'll tell you something. And I don't want to know who the pilots were, like the time that Obama exposed the SEAL team that killed Osama bin Laden. We just know who did, that we did this. And this is a message to everyone who wants to turn around and say death to America and think, they're going to get away with it. This was a defensive measure, and you want to be on the side of Trump, or you want to be on the side of Jasmine Crockett and AOC, two of the biggest lowlifes that ever created, as well as the other idiots that want to impeach a great American, the greatest American president of our lifetime. This should be a proud day for all Americans, and you know who the traitors are because they're the ones who are opposed to it, and they're the ones who are giving aid and comfort to the enemy. And the sooner we figure this out, and we need...
Arthur, a great way to end the show. Really a great way to end the show. And just so that you know, there are now clips coming out in the Iranian parliament. This is their parliament. They are standing up, one so-called lawmaker after another, chanting, "Death to America, death to America." Yeah, they don't have the bomb, thank God. I gotta go. Bye-bye.